Greetings, friends and everyone. I am Dreyfusxano, and I am proud to announce that it's finally happening. I am properly launching Season 0 of my YouTube content, and I'm soft relaunching that channel. You may recall this video here that came out about 5 years ago, that I'll put up on the screen here. I am way behind. It's a little nuts that I put out that primer video about that long ago, 5 years ago, and a lot has happened in my life IRL that has sort of prevented me from actually just getting content done. This was just around the pandemic and some IRL things got in the way, but now that that's in the past, I think we can move forward now, properly. Now, while things are going to change here a bit, my first primer will still serve as a foundation for my content going forward. So if you haven't seen that video yet, I do advise you to go watch that video, and then this will just be in an addition to that one specifically. Let's see if I can make my way around here and not get myself too lost while I'm actually doing this. Now, while things are going to change here a bit, my first primer will still serve as a foundation for my content going forward, like I said. Consider this video as the proper launch video of how Season 0 is going to play out. So I said in the other video that that one was going to establish just the foundation of what my content may look like, and then this one will actually be the whole launch. I'm going to make sure to put timestamps in the description of this video to detail every topic I'm going to be discussing here today, so feel free to jump to any point in the video here if you so choose. So, how is this going to work? Here is my official no takesies backsies Season 0 launch plan, or I guess roadmap, how it's going to work. So first of all, starting on February 9th, 2026 to February 13th, 2026, I'm going to be releasing a very short, quick mini-series that I'm calling Dynamic Return. This mini-series is in tribute to Oxhorn, one of the old OG machinimators that I would watch a ton growing up, like his Oxhorn short shorts, a lot of his songs and music videos he created, a bunch of stuff like that. But I think one of his series that sort of went under the radar, it sounds like he never got a chance to finish, he's calling Dynamic Return. I'm just realizing how dark it is here. Oop, don't want to get in the way of that local there. And I believe he's now doing a lot of stuff with the Fallout series. One of his older series he never got a chance to finish was called the Dynamic Action Team, involving some Team Fortress 2 characters, and there was some time travel shenanigans there, and just long story short, he never got this series finished. This mini-series that I'm going to be creating here that's going to be launched will sort of be my interpretation of sort of my picking up where he left off and my interpretation of what happened to those characters specifically. And I did attempt to learn the Source Filmmaker when I was attempting this little side project, and I wanted to replicate a few of the scenes from the Dynamic Action Team miniseries. So it's not like I pulled it directly from the episode specifically, so I just went into Source Filmmaker, attempted to do what I wanted to do, and it was a little bit difficult. I would like to explore that software here sometime in the future as a possible way of revisiting those characters. So it's not so much that this is going to be a one-and-done situation. I want to learn a little bit more about 3D modeling and video editing, just so that, again, I can establish myself here properly. Now, I'm here in Founder's Point. I think this way goes to the spooky area. I don't know where that one goes, so let's go this way. I'd like to explore doing 3D animation with Source Filmmaker, but I'm still a ways away from being able to do that just yet. Also, this mini-series, it was supposed to be my way of saying that I'm using the high-definition World of Warcraft models instead of the older, classic, standard-definition ones. So I realize this is a little bit late to the party specifically, but My characters will start off in the standard definition classic models, but then near the end you'll see them in the high definition models, just to show that there's some change in consistency specifically. For this next week, when I launch these videos, there's also going to be a bit of a double header for the entire week. On each of those days, I will have a video prepared that showcases my alternate characters, or my alts, that will be my machinimated cast. These videos that you'll see will be in reference to the old What's Your Game segments Blizzard put out years ago. I tried creating a few of them myself, but due to other things getting in the way and some other IRL stuff, I could never create an entire set for my machinimated characters, so this is sort of my way of bridging that gap specifically. And so just creating something that it would have been my What's Your Game segments for each of them, had I done that back at that point specifically. Okay, so for week 3, I have a series of videos planned going over some basic improv skills and games that I have enjoyed over the years of being an improviser. I'm trying to figure out how to establish here, how do I set myself apart as a WoW content creator so I'm not just replicating a gold maker, I'm not just replicating a storyteller or a machinimator, but I'm doing it in my own very specific way. So I figured here that I will try releasing a few tutorials. So I have a series of videos planned for week 3, going over some basic improv skills and games that I've enjoyed over the years of being an improviser and entertainer. This series will start off as a series of tutorials and then evolve from there because, well, I love making jokes up. I love being an improviser. And finally, for the final week of week 4, my characters will be jumping back into the game of Overwatch as I continue another mini-series I call The Quest for the Play of the Game. This series is where my WoW characters will simply sit down in my new theater and just play Overwatch. I want to learn how to get better at Overwatch, but also at the same time I want to see if I can turn it into an actual story of my characters just playing the game. I will promise that there will be a weekly video for the Quest of the Play of the Game for week 4, maybe 2 a day and one that involves a set of quick plays, and then another one in the stadium mode. This video is coming out after the State of Warcraft video and the Overwatch Showcase video, so there may be a few bumps along the way as I settle on a format that works for me. Now, before I move on here too, I'm going to put an image here up on the screen. Speaking of the State of the Warcraft video, if you have seen it here, you may have seen me fanboy a little bit about a very specific image of a very specific home that was shown off, and I will say here that this isn't something that I entered, this isn't something that I spoke with any developers or anything. It was as much of a surprise to me that my theater actually got shown off in the State of the Warcraft video. So I will specifically mention here, if you do want to watch it and see what it is I'm talking about, look at the 5 minutes and 37 second time point and look for a pirate ship and a gnomish mech house, and my theater is right between there. And I have to say that was a very surreal moment that I wasn't expecting, I wasn't expecting my theater to actually be shown off there, but there it is. So I will mention here that this is a small win for me in general, but it is a significant one. For all the content that I have and haven't released, and with me, again, streaming on Twitch with my improv show, Mr. Smite's Improv, I've always wondered what has been the reach of my show specifically, and this little experiment with just relieving stress on a week-to-week basis. So now, moving on to my next topic, shorts. Alongside the long-form content that I've prepared, I have prepared 12 shorts of my characters telling jokes in the style of the improv game 185. This was a bit of a challenge because I've only came up with a few voices for some of my characters because I used them a little bit more than some of the other ones. This was a bit of a challenge because I never really came up with the voices for each of them. Please be patient with me while I refine this process. Usually for just my Dreyfus character, I just use my normal voice and I'm fine with it. Usually for my character Asmodeus, I'll use this voice. I was actually inspired by the undead character from one of Oxhorn's series, undead character, I think his name was Mortus or something. When I use this voice, this is my way of just my character being very nerdy. And then I have my character of Kabatica, who normally talks in this sort of voice, in what my interpretation of a Drernaic voice sounds like. Now, for some of my other characters, they have like a prim and proper voice for Melquiotus and Talion, but they have the exact same proper voice, so I still need to figure out if I'm going to give them voices, how do I differentiate that? And that's still a learning process, and my final character, my Dwarven Priest Toric, tried a Dwarvish voice. I don't think I've ever attempted that before, so as I say during my disclosure that I usually give during each of my improv shows, this show is meant to be lighthearted, so please do not take anything we say tonight too seriously. We're here to have fun, we're here to laugh, etc. So I'm hoping to actually continue that tradition within my content specifically. I do try to be as transparent as possible so that if there is a certain line, I try to establish where that line is specifically, but then I try to make sure to not get as close to that as possible. So with those voices that I just mentioned, I do want to strike a balance between pushing my creative limits and just not offending anyone. I don't think I have, but I just, again, want to make sure if there are lines that I just make sure not to cross them if at all possible. These 12 shorts will be uploaded immediately into their own playlist on my channel, and feel free to just watch them and view them at your own leisure. And if you do enjoy these shorts that I've uploaded, including a handful that I tested out like months and months ago, if you did like them, I do want to expand this a little bit into more short form comedic content. I have a plan here with my characters to try and play the game of Quiplash, the Jackbox game, which I really enjoy. I do want to try maybe Riff Tracks, see if that one works, but I do want to make sure that I have a personal rule here with myself that I keep my content PG, because I'm making it my own personal challenge here to stay wholesome and family friendly, but still figure out where I can actually push my creative limits. You'll be seeing some Jackbox shorts coming up here pretty soon, once I can get them all together. I do want to see here if I can create not just comedic content, but also create interesting WoW guides in under a minute to 3 minutes, because that's the current YouTube limit for shorts, between 1 minute and 3 minutes. If I can make those shorts interesting enough, I will create some long-form content that will dive deeper into those topics specifically. So while this may not necessarily be something with the comedic content, I do want to try this with gold making specifically. I have an idea for a short about the quickest way to get a WoD garrison, a Warlords of Draenor garrison, set up in the quickest amount of time possible. And in my research, I can get a garrison up to level 2 really quickly, but then there comes a problem. Setting up garrison level 3 requires, I believe it's either 5,000 gold and 2,000 resources, or 2,000 gold and 5,000 resources. When I go into editing mode here, I will have a screenshot up on the screen here so I can correct myself once I get to that point specifically. I want to show off here specifically the quickest way to get a garrison set up. And speaking of gold making, I will say here that ever since player housing did come out here specifically, I have made a lot of gold with decor and housing dyes. I can't in good conscience not share that specifically, so that you may know that if you need help making gold, try using your professions and build some decor, build some housing dye, and try selling that on the auction house and see if that helps you. So just stuff like that, where just you help me, I help you, and we just, as one of my own personal mission statements, we get better together. And then finally, I do want to cover a topic about, in my primer video, I did promise a music video at the end of Season 0, and I will have one at that time. I actually do have one prepared that will be similar to my Techno Rocker video, my very first music video I put on this channel, but it'll be a bit more virtual. You'll see why once that launches. And I plan to release that one very specifically at the end of February. I believe I have 3 actual music videos, and I think I did 1 or 2 just music parodies specifically. This is one of those things here that if I do music videos, I just won't be able to monetize them. And I think that sort of just goes without saying here specifically. I do, again, want to strike a balance here between figuring out just how I can making content on YouTube specifically, make enough money there that I can make this my full-time job, and then I need to figure out how do I make enough money through Twitch so I can just machinimate over the week and then on Twitch just improvise and just continue to have fun there. And that's a answer to a question I just don't have yet, or a question to an answer I don't have yet, if you get my drift. I do need to start doing some research here if I'm going to continue the tradition of releasing a music video at the end of each of my seasons. And I don't want this to say like I can't fulfill that promise, because if I'm going to make a promise, I do everything that I can to fulfill that promise specifically. If I need to adjust, then figuring out how do I adjust without upsetting my growing audience specifically. If I'm going to continue this tradition of releasing a music video at the end of each of my seasons, I do need to do a little bit of research. I really do like making music videos, but those uploads are parody videos that I just cannot monetize. For other reasons, again, I want to make sure here that if I am going to do this, that I do it in a way that's beneficial not just to me, but beneficial to my audience. So I'm going to look into some audio creation programs like FL Studios and see if I can create some unique, fun music. I don't really know what the process is with creating music like that. I've also used a really old Sony program that for some reason is called Sony Acid, and I think it's similar, but that may need to be the process that I go through if I'm going to plan to hold true to that very specific promise of releasing a music video at the end of each of these seasons. I did debate using some AI music creation software, but for the time being right now, I'm deciding against it for now, because the last thing I want is for this soft relaunch of my channel to hit an early snag. It would be in my best interest to collaborate with some other actual established music creators first that are already out there. I want to make sure I don't get in the way here. As sort of a scenario here, not that I'm going to be doing this, if, for example, I did create an AI song that I thought was really cool, and that was the only AI bit that I created, however, everything else in said music video was machinimated by me, what would you think about that? Now, I may or may not get any traction on that specifically, but if you are interested, let me know. Yes, no, because then I think if I bring that up here specifically, I'd rather have this be like 80 to 90% collaborating with actual music creators and content creators, and then maybe 5 to 10% is AI music of my own idea. So I would need to figure out how to navigate that red tape and everything if I did decide that. But I think the best plan for me at the moment would be going with established creators first. I'm not going to lie here and say that I know a lot about the analytics of YouTube or anything, but as I looked over a lot of my previous videos, each of my music videos do have a few thousand views, while most of my other bits of content have tens of views. So that tells me something. If I can figure out a niche of actually making consistently good music videos that speak to my own creativity and my own flair, then there's a niche that I can look into right there. If there is one thing that I really enjoy about music videos, is making something unique and satisfying to watch. Like specifically with Techno Rocker that I referred to earlier, I don't know why I put my Tauren and Undead characters in there in the way that I did, but I honestly just wanted to see them dancing to the beat and hitting the beat exactly so it could be a satisfying video. I've come a long way since 2008 and when that video came out specifically. I have come a long way since that time, but I do feel like there are a handful of lessons I did need to learn from that specifically as I went on to my Ding music video. That was my parody of Fort Miners Remember the Name. And then also my Chris Brown Forever song that I parodied of my two characters falling into a dance club and then all of that. If I am going to make music videos, I want to make sure that they are unique and just satisfying to watch. Now, I do want to dive into more song creation, like a rap battle idea that I have in my head, but this one requires a little bit more prep work and resources that I just don't have access to right now. That being said, too, I do want to learn how to drop lyrics better. I'm not going to refer to myself as a rapper in this case. I think it might be better to refer to myself as a lyricist so that I don't do a Freudian slip there specifically. If I am going to create more music, I want to do it the right way, like with my Rhea's theme song. Now, you may or may not have actually seen this song specifically on my channel, but it was dedicated to a Magic the Gathering card that I really liked when I first started playing Magic the Gathering, and it was just called Rhea Dawnbringer. And it's at the beginning of your upkeep, it allows you to just bring one of your creatures back from the graveyard just back into play, and I really, really liked it. This was a song I created many years ago, but I only uploaded it recently to see how it would fare. I think it got a handful of views, so it's okay. That said, I may look into recreating that song, but I just don't know how to make it not just unique to me, but have it sound actually listenable. Like, have it actually be something interesting my audience could listen to. I do want to try different formats with my seasons of content as well to see what works for me specifically. If I do create 30 videos and I release them once a day for a month, that season of content would have to just be a month long. I would need a little bit of a buffer to create more content, but I do at least want to create, with some wiggle room, a little bit of an air of consistency for myself specifically. I do want to try different formats with my seasons of content to see what works for me specifically and individually. If I do create 30 videos and release them once a day for a month, just on a Monday to Friday cadence, and maybe an occasional video throughout the week and on a Saturday, then that specific season would have to just be a month long. However, if I launch them on a Wednesday to Friday cadence, like I mentioned in my early primer video, then that one can be over a few months. And so this is just data that I don't have access to here just yet. Is this something that my audience may or may not like? And do I replicate what it is that I do specifically with Mr. Smite's Improv? So again, that's just stuff I just don't know. What makes the most sense and what... I have to admit here, a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense to me, but this is exactly why I'm doing this here, so I can have it make sense. So I've been experimenting with a handful of ideas here of, like, I may do something where a season of content is just nothing but shorts, nothing but just 185s, Hey Waiters, and the alphabet games, or maybe a season is nothing more but just Overwatch content. Dare I even say maybe a month of music videos? A month of music videos, that would take some doing. I can't really promise that I can do that specifically yet until I know that I can pull this off and do it well. Do it in a way that makes sense to me, but brings value not just to me, but to the creator of the music that I collect here. And then it's actually fulfilling and satisfying for my audience to actually watch specifically. And at the end of the day, I'm still learning how important my time is. And I'm still learning how to adjust, specifically how to do this regularly, but also that being said, not just that, I am learning how important, well, your time is. And I want to ensure that I'm learning how to evolve as an entertainer and an improviser. And I do want to make sure at the end of the day that your time watching my content is well spent. I've seen a handful of other people say things to the effect of, ooh, I think we've actually gone full circle here. I remember walking past that individual. And I want to ensure that while I am learning how to evolve as an entertainer and improviser, I want to ensure that your time watching my content is well spent. I've seen handfuls of comments of some other commenters saying, I watched 5 minutes of this and I want my 5 minutes back. And I'm still trying to figure out here how to address that specifically. If anything, I beg you, please be respectful in my comments. And if my content is not for you, I just wish you all the best. And I'm trying to figure out how to say this in a way that's not self-deprecating to me specifically. I'm well aware that there are other content creators and just other individuals that are just doing this better than I am. Someone who's funnier, more articulate, more something than I am. I fully acknowledge that. I ask that you do give me a chance, but if my content's not for you, my content's not for you. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm going to be really serious here for a moment. I am going to be moderating each and every one of my comments. I will not tolerate intentionally mean-spirited comments that tear anyone down. I do welcome feedback, but I do ask that it be done constructively so that I can get better at what it is that I'm doing. As I mentioned here before, I do like utilizing a phrase that I call, let's get better together. I do welcome any feedback that you do have for me as I start this process and get it more into a season 1, a season 2, etc., so that I can build something that's uniquely mine, that's uniquely something that I leave this world better than I found it. But also, as I get up here, I do want to mention something. I may have mentioned this once or twice before, but a couple of years ago, I worked at a job that was just not ideal for me specifically. And I think we'll have the last part of this video just over here in this grand view. I think this is the darker part of the... I want to make sure that I don't fall off here either. So I'm just going to hop right here. The last part of this video will just be right here. A long time ago, I used to work at a job that was not ideal for me. It was very stressful and it was not good for me with my mental health specifically. And so I needed to find a way to alleviate some amount of stress in my life so that I could make the next week all the more manageable for me. Now, how exactly do I do that? And so I combined two things that I really wanted to pursue here, both this game here, and again, this was way before this island was launched, of Founder's Point. I created my improv show of Mr. Smite's Improv, and that started this process of, if I can make at least one person genuinely laugh, then that made the next week all the more manageable for me. And that was something that kept me going from week to week, because I would get an occasional comment from a handful of individuals just thanking me because I helped make their week just a little bit more better from week to week. And now that we're here in 2026 and looking over this grand island that still has a lot of potential and a lot of it has been unexplored here, how do I take this now to the next level? How do I instill some amount of positivity here so that I can create something meaningful specifically? So again, I welcome feedback, but I do ask that it be done constructively so that I can get better at what it is I'm doing here specifically. I hope I can create a community where we can argue and disagree, but still be friends. One of my own personal mottos here is that I may disagree from time to time, but I do everything that I can to treat you like a human being, like a gnome, like a dwarf, like an orc, like a Draenei, like whoever it is that you are. I try to be real, but at the same time do so with tact and with optimism, but realism at the same time. I want to make sure that I'm creating this community here where we can grow together and get better together. So with that being said, I've reached the end of the content that I wanted to mention here. As we wrap up this video here, and as I look down on my theater, just right down there, I do hope that I get the chance to entertain you at some point here on Founders Point, on Plot 22. The neighborhood may change from time to time, but I'm going to make it a point here to ensure, if I do move my house, that I keep it on Plot 22. Now, as the holidays roll around later in the year, like your Pilgrim's Bounty, Hallows End, and Winter's Veil here specifically, I may move my house into some of the autumnal places that are down here, the spookier places that are down there, etc., just for theming. But at the end of the day, I do want to ensure here that I keep my place right here on Plot 22. I'm going to claim this, and if anybody else has claimed Plot 22 specifically, then I can always deal with that when the time comes. So, as I look out here, these lovely clouds and blue sky, I hope that I can create some blue sky here of my own. The sky is the limit here with my content. I'm hoping to look forward to 2026 with some optimism, some hilarity, and some improvement, and how I evolve. And honestly, once 2026 comes to an end, near the end of the year, 2027 comes around, just imagine a year from now where player housing is going to be. Just how is my house going to evolve here, and how are these neighborhoods going to evolve? But I don't want to get too much into that. So thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to launching all of this content and just seeing here, once February comes to an end, if this content was something that was interesting to you. So with all of that being said, I am Dreyfusxano, Dionysica, and Arcanon Poros. And it's time to improvise. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this again. If you haven't noticed already, I'm doing this sort of off the cuff, but I'm using a teleprompter here. And this is going to be slightly unedited, and I may or may not come back and actually take this out later on. But and finally, for the final week of week 4, my characters will finally be jumping back into the game of Overwatch as I continue a series. Oh. Friendly local there waving hi to me. The Undor... the... Let's try this one again. This is probably the first time that I've had to reactivate this camera as often as I have. Ooh. Did I reach I think I reached a dead end here, so I might as well just turn around here. Interesting. Wonder what those mean. I don't think that's a reference to Phyrexia from Magic the Gathering. Wonder what those mean. Huh. I think I have a bunch of outtakes. Just imagine me trying to do one of these vlogs, actually walking forward where I can't see anything. Watch where you're going! Watch where you're going! Okay, let's try this again. And request Sometimes it makes it a little bit harder to say a serious topic when my character here just sighs.